Welcome to Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Alan Wake 2. I played on the Xbox Series X. It's also available on the PS5 and PC. So in Alan Wake 2, you play as the titular character Alan Wake, but you also play as Saga Anderson. She is an FBI agent investigating a murder of a former FBI agent, which is what leads her to Bright Falls. But because it's Bright Falls, home of the Dark Place, well, weird stuff starts happening, and you find out that, well, the Dark Place is at it again. Alan Wake is trying to escape. Mr. Scratch is out there causing mayhem. And that's all I'm going to say, because I loved the story. I thought it was a really well-told story, and it's a really interesting story. And I think the way they lay out the story is really cool with the two characters. This is a little gameplay-ish, but you can play through most of Saga's stuff or Wake's stuff without touching the others and then go back, and it still weaves together well. So let's get into the audio, and the first thing I'm going to say is the sound effects are really, really well done in this game. Bright Falls being a woodsy place, you get to be out in the woods at night and evening, and never really during the day. But either way, the sound effects are fantastic. They make you feel like you're out in some spooky-ass woods, which woods can be spooky-ass as all hell at night. But even when you're not in the woods, when you're doing the Alan Wake stuff, which takes place in like this fictional city, that's really well done. The sound effects there, just sound effects in general throughout this game, I thought were well done. A few were a little generic, I will say, but not necessarily bad. As for the music, I think the music is really well done. I love that there's like a different song for the end of each chapter for each character. Not that I necessarily loved all the songs. Some of them were really awesome. Some of them I could have lived without, but I thought it was cool that they put that much effort into it. As well as the rest of the music throughout the game, I think is well done. I was really happy with it. Then you've got the voiceover work, which I think it's good. I don't think all of it is necessarily mind-blowing, but it's good. I love the narration, especially because it adds this kind of noir vibe, and it really fits with the original tone of the first Alan Wake. And having the different characters with different narration styles, I think really worked. Unfortunately, though, I did have audio issues. Not throughout the game, but early on, the opening cutscene, the audio-video got way out of sync, and you were hearing things and seeing lips move just completely out of sync. It was bad. It wasn't every cutscene following that, but that opening one, it was very noticeable. But then early on, also, the audio just completely cut out on me, and at first I was like, oh, is this supposed to be happening? No, it was not. I had to restart the game, and then go through an entire cutscene again. But the audio came back and I never lost it again, so that was good. Let's get into the gameplay mechanics and whatnot. And Alan Wake 2 is very different from Alan Wake in the fact that Alan Wake 2 is actually a survival horror game. Looking back on Alan Wake, it really wasn't. It was much more of an action shooter with some horror-ish elements to it. Whereas Alan Wake 2 is a proper survival horror game. They build it through the audio, they build it through the environments. Unlike classic survival horror games, I would never say there was a point in time where I was like truly panicked and low on ammo. I guess there was one section, but that was pretty early on. But it still felt mostly horror. There were a few action elements near the end. I think it started to get a little more action-oriented near the end, which isn't a bad thing. It very much worked in the context of the game. There's also a lot of puzzles and collectibles in this game. It actually adds a lot of time. Overall, it's not like necessarily a short game, but with that stuff, it gets considerably longer, almost doubles the length. All of the collectibles, though, they pay off. They're not just collectibles for the collectibles' sake. There's the charms, which will enhance your abilities, maybe give you more health, etc. There's the stashes, which have items like flares, bullets, batteries, etc. Which, addressing those, once again, the enemies are generally coated in like this darkness that you have to blast away with a flashlight. It's handled differently. Your flashlight has charges rather than one long charge, and generally speaking, a single charge will blast off the darkness and then you use as many bullets as you need. But you do get a variety of other items to help combat them. Flares that launch, flares that you just light and can burn away the darkness, won't necessarily damage them, etc. You get a good variety of weapons to combat the Taken. There are two major gameplay elements that they have added, one for each character. Saga, being an FBI agent, has her mind place, and yes, she does address that's kind of like a mind palace, where you put together like case information. You put up photos with notes, and she puts red strings to them, and she builds a case, and then she also profiles characters. And it's actually really important to do these things because otherwise you can't always progress. So if you are just focused on progressing in the regular gameplay and you don't do that, you're gonna get stuck and actually not be able to move forward. But I think it's well done, and it was actually a really interesting way of seeing the story unfold for her. Whereas with Alan Wake, he's trying to write his way out of the dark place, and so he'll go to a location and build a story, and you'll unlock new story elements and use them, and they'll change the environment around you. And I thought those two gameplay elements were out of nowhere, and I loved them because they added a whole new layer to the game. The only real gameplay issue I had was NPC movement speed, because the NPCs you need to follow walk slower than you walk, even though they're supposed to be guiding you. But let's get into the controls, and overall I was happy with the controls. I'm gonna say overall, I think the aiming could be a bit stronger. It's not terrible, and there is not quite an auto lock-on, but there is definitely an aim assist feature, which does help. It works and it helps, but the aiming could be stronger. There are times when you're trying to manipulate the camera a little more precisely than it really allows you to. And generally I found that when I was like trying to collect items, I would have to finagle the camera so that I would be able to collect it, and it just wouldn't always cooperate as much as I'd love it to. Overall, the game, though, the controls worked well. I did have one glitch, though, in the middle of a goddamn boss fight, where only a few of the buttons were responding. I could move my camera, and I could melee. Couldn't shoot, couldn't do anything else, had to restart the whole boss fight. That was frustrating. Let's get into the graphics and visuals, and while this is a beautiful game and there is a lot of detail, I will say that it's not like the prettiest thing you're ever going to see. But that is not to say that this is bad by any stretch of the imagination. There's actually a lot of great details in the characters, mostly is where I noticed it. The woods themselves could be done just a little bit better. Specifically, leaves on the ground, some of the foliage could look better. That's not to say that it looks bad and they don't do a great job with the woods, with the city, with the town, because they actually do, and they make it spooky through that. And that's really necessary in a good survival horror game, is to build a scary ass environment, and they succeed at that. The design of the woods, the buildings you find in the woods, some of the collectibles, like finding them and some of the things around them, are pretty fucking creepy. As well as the Taken, the way they're done, still good and creepy. Honestly, way creepier in this than in the first game. There are also just these walking shadows, basically, that are mostly harmless. But just seeing those around, that gets creepy. But where this game really shines from the visuals is the characters, like I said. Whether it's their outfits or their faces, their outfits have so much detail in them. Which, that's impressive. Seeing the weave of Alan Wake's jacket, seeing the texture of Saga's FBI jacket or her sweater. Things like that are really impressive and well done, as well as their facial expressions. The animation there, the motion capture, whatever it was, they did a fantastic job, and the actors obviously did a great job bringing these characters to life. But it goes into everything else, even the small details of like the rain and making things look wet and reflective and things. The one thing that was disappointing was the mirrors are all like fogged over. You know, mirrors should be reflective. And I get that that is a hard thing to do in games, but I would love to see it in every game that has mirrors. But the water effects, the creature effects, the Taken effects I should call them, the movement of the characters, and the effects for the lighting, that is really well done. I was really impressed by that. And I mean, it has to be done very well because light is such an important element of the Alan Wake story. So let's get into the wrap up. And the first thing I'm going to say is I've seen a bunch of things, 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, game of the year, etc. I wouldn't go quite that far. Which is not me saying that this is bad in the slightest. I loved the story, I loved the presentation, I had a fun time playing this game, even in the places where it got frustrating. I never reached a point where I just raged out and was like, oh, I need a break, I need to stop playing this for a while. But there were some small issues that did chip away from the overall quality, so I wouldn't quite go like game of the year. That being said, I think it's absolutely worth playing. I really enjoyed it. I think if you like survival horror at all, or anything kind of with a noir vibe, I definitely think this game is worth picking up. I'm glad that I did. So yeah, recommended. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, have you played Alan Wake before? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.